Well, everybody, Josh Neighbors here, host of the Locked On Nationals podcast. This is a crossover edition of Locked On Nationals and Locked On Padres. Javier Reyes, the host of Locked On Padres, joins me, and there's only one thing that's on the minds of everybody listening right now. The Washington Nationals have traded Juan Soto and Josh Bell to the San Diego Padres for a package containing, I believe, six players in total. The blockbuster deal of all blockbuster deals, one of the largest trades ever made, most important trades, not just in baseball history, but I would say in sports history. Javi, nice to talk to you again. And what was your reaction when you initially saw that the deal was completed?
Oh, I was calm. I was rational. As you know, we've done a bunch of crossovers together. As you know, I don't have high energy whatsoever, right? Like, I'm actually known for being a little stoic. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like a sphinx. You know, I rarely show any emotion, Josh. And yeah, I showed a lot of emotion. I'm obviously kidding. It was nuts. I'm in the middle of work. And I think a key thing to point out is that for me on the side of this, and even for you to an extent, because of the Nationals and Padres last year with Max Scherzer, right? Mm-hmm. That we're all seeing these updates. We're seeing them. The Padres, it's between Padres and Dodgers. It's between Padres, Dodgers, and Cardinals. Now it's on the half-yard line. Now it's this, now it's that. The Padres are aggressive, all these things. And I'm like, bro, I've seen this movie before, even in the offseason, where they thought, and this is the first ever time I'm going to say it. I'm going to say his name finally because he's gone. Eric Hosmer, that we thought he was getting traded to the Mets. That didn't go through, all these things. And now look at us. No more Eric Hosmer. Instead, Josh Bell, Juan Soto. And by the way, the fact that acquiring Josh Hader and extending Joe Musgrove and also acquiring Brandon Drury are like maybe the 7th or 8th most important things that happened to this team over the past 24 hours really kind of is a perfect summation of where my mind is at. And I imagine the mind of many Padres fans everywhere.
Well, you know, I have to say that's one of the things that Nationals GM Mike Rizzo actually mentioned in his remarks to the media that he just made it. You and I are recording at 5:13, so everything's not done yet. There's still more moves to be had, and I think the Nationals probably make one or two more. But he mentioned he gave AJ Preller a lot of credit, the general manager of the San Diego Padres. He said he's going for it, man. I mean, he's aggressive. He is going for it. And look, there are a lot of people out there saying about the package. I mean, guys, don't act like you don't know, you know about these players. We really don't. I mean, Javi, you're more of an authority on these guys than most, but let me just read the actual trade package itself. So being sent to the San Diego Padres, it is Josh Bell and Juan Soto. And then in return, the Nationals are getting CJ Abrams. They are getting who's a shortstop, Mackenzie Gore, who's a left-handed pitcher, Robert Hassel III, who's an outfielder, James Wood, who's also an outfielder, Yarlin Susuna, who's a right-handed pitcher, and they're getting Luke Voigt, which I'm actually fine with it being Luke Voigt as opposed to Eric Hosmer. That was a really weird wrinkle in this trade and something that we can actually get to here in a little bit. But this is a massive trade. Mike Rizzo said, look, we were in a position where we had to say no. Somebody had to make us say yes. And this trade made them say yes. And so, I think it's a fair package. Like, I didn't think last year's package in the Turner and Max trade was fair. I mean, on its surface, the amount of top prospects the Nationals are getting here, they're getting also variety too. Like Abrams and Gore will probably be playing for the Nationals, in a month or so here. And also, a lot of guys who are kind of more down the line, Susana, Wood. I mean, those are guys we're going to see, it'll take a little bit. So they got some variety here. They really restocked the farm. I actually think the package, I'm not saying I know for sure, but like these were the best assets the Padres had.
Yeah, absolutely the best assets. They did hang on to guys like Luis Campuzano, who clearly, I think after this trade, the Padres see as their future catcher, which is good because I have always been, they don't need a catcher. They traded for Keibert Ruiz. You mentioned the package for last year. That's, why it was light, of course, Josh, is because what's his name? Mike Rizzo was a sleeper agent for the Dodgers. And of course, thankfully, because of AJ Preller, he snapped him out of that and made him, more of just his own person again. So thank you to AJ Preller for that. But yeah, I think, look, I mean, we're going to talk about this all episode, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the biggest trade, at least of our lifetime. I hate being hyperbolic, but it probably is because of the fact that Soto, some would even say the best player in baseball. And that's totally fair. You can make that argument. The guy's never had an on-base lower than 400. So you have that. The fact that he's so young is the key part here. I just think like they did give up a decent amount, the Padres. And I think that one of the things I was worried about was that if you count the Brandon Drury trade, Josh Hader thing and everything, that they were going to give up every single asset. I was a little bit worried about that, but they got Bell on top of all of this. They were able to get rid of Mr. Eric Hosmer, who I could finally say now in full on my podcast, which I imagine longtime listeners of my show will appreciate. And they were able to just make a lot of improvements by not going all in on one guy, which I think is important. That being said, the players they gave up were really enticing. CJ Abrams, while he hasn't been awesome for them so far, he's a baby. He's like 21 years old.
Yeah.
So like the fact that he's up in the first place is incredible, right? And then you have Mackenzie Gore, who, if not for this injury, which is probably a big part of why they're willing to move on from him, since they're worried about when will he come back if they're trying to make a World Series run, which they clearly are after this move, that the Padres said, okay, we're willing to deal him. Robert Hassel's really exciting. I think he's going to climb up the prospect rankings, might even be in the top 10, dare I say, by the time we get to next season. And James Wood is kind of like a high tier lottery ticket. And what I mean by that is like,
so that's the guy I've been getting the most messages about.
Yeah. James Wood.
That's who I'm talking. Yeah.
If you see some minor league videos of just him, where he reaches down to get the ball and where this isn't just a guy who hits a certain place for power, right? This isn't a guy who just sits outside or upside. It's down, it's away, it's inside. So he's really interesting, but it's also true. He's a single A type of guy, right? It's possible he flames out. It's possible. This is just what happens for these freak power prospects. That being said, the guy is huge, right? Like massive. He's like 6'7". Yeah. So is this another Aaron Judge type guy? Maybe, but clearly it made sense for the Padres to, if they were getting Juan Soto, to move on because he's clearly more down the line. Hassel, Abrams, those guys are going to be ready soon. And like you said, with Gore, he'll be ready. So I don't think it was a nothing thing. If you're a Nationals fan, though, the other side of this is, while it does look nice historically throughout baseball and any sport, dare I say, trading superstars of Juan Soto's caliber, even for the giant package, tends to not work out for the team that traded the superstar. Tends not to. Not all the time, but tends not to go that way. So there's kind of two ways to view this. On the surface, I think that the Padres really did give them some pretty good players. But also, I'm wondering, just how did we get here almost, if you're a Nationals fan? Right?
Well, I think the answer is this. And there's obviously a combination of things, and I'm going to talk about a lot on my show, but like the Nationals, they're not good. Like they're so bad. Here's the way I put it. They are so bad to the point where keeping Juan Soto doesn't make sense. You can try to rationalize whatever way you want to, but if they, it felt like the relationship was beginning to fracture. All right. And if that's the case, what do you have? You have an asset with 3 years left and his value will never be higher. Now, I think they could have hung on to him and still traded him this offseason, still got a massive haul for him and maybe given it one more shot, but to what end? I mean, the Nationals need help at outfield, at third, at short, at second, at first. Like there are no positions where the Nationals are for sure set for the future. And so this is important that they made a move like this, where the relationship is starting to fracture. Like, okay, you pay, you keep Juan Soto over the next couple of years, you pay him $20 million in arbitration. And what do you get? I mean, your team's not going to be any good. And Josh Bell walks, you're going to go and sign somebody else and try to give it a go. Your division's way too good. So this was the time now to cash in on Juan Soto because he was not coming back. And this kind of gets the big thing. I think we're all thinking like, I don't think he's going to re-sign with the Padres. He's definitely going to hit free agency. Like that is for sure. He might re-sign with the Padres, but not before he hits free agency. That is why the Nats had to do it. A, they're horrible, which is a problem of their own making. And B, Juan Soto is one of the best players or one of the best rising stars in modern sports history, who's accomplished so much at so young relative to their sport. And his agent was going to make sure he's going to hear every single last offer to see how much money he can make. And the Nationals, there's no point in getting in that business because they're so bad and they need some stuff to make them better. So this is kind of where I think they are with this. On the flip side, Javi, I mean, the Padres just all of it. They're going for all of it. They're taking no prisoners.
Absolutely.
They're making all of the moves. Now, here's what I'll say. The National League is a hell in a cell match to get to the World Series this year. The Mets and the Braves are battling it out. Looks like both of them will make it. Obviously, the Padres and Dodgers are both set to make the playoffs as well. I'm not really too worried about the Brewers. But I think those are all legitimate threats to go to the World Series. And I don't think anybody would be surprised if any of those 4 teams made it. And so the Padres are gearing up like they have a massive mountain to climb because they do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. But in fairness, they went out and got a guy who is about as sure thing you could find, right? It's one of the great joys that I think Padres fans have felt acquiring Juan Soto a lot of times. But Josh, can I just really quickly before we dive even deeper into this, because I want to give Nationals fans some hope. You know what I mean? I want to give them my perspective on this whole thing. Can we talk about one of life's other biggest joys?
I'm not sure what you're referencing, so I can't say if we'll agree, but we'll see.
We got baseball. We've got video games. We've got anime. We've got the San Diego Padres watching the Nationals. Those are some of life's greatest joys. But another one is food, my friend. And another one specifically in food are protein bars, my friend. And do you know what are the best protein bars that you can get?
I think I know. I think the listeners know. I believe they are Built Bars.
They are Built Bars indeed, Josh. Thank you so much. You figured it out, you smart alecky goose. You know what I mean? But guys, if you haven't yet tried the Built Bars, you need to go check them out. They're soft and easy to chew, covered in 100% chocolate. They've got a ton of flavors. I know I really like the cherry barcia flavor. They got all kinds of cool stuff, but they also have Built Bar Puffs, which are kind of like puffy marshmallowy versions of the Built Bars, and they're very, very good. So go check those out. Cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, covered in 100% chocolate. All sorts of good stuff, man. It's really great. It's really great over that Built Bar.
They go down easier than the Juan Soto trade will for Nats fans. I'll promise you that.
They absolutely will. And Padres fans, as you're watching him take his at-bats probably within the next day or so, have yourself a Built Bar Puff on the side, guys. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk flavor. You're going to love all of their stuff. Go grab yourself some bars. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Remember, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order.
All right.
I think it did pretty good there.
I think he did. I think some of the fans are like, oh my God, what is this? Where is he going with this? And I'm not sure they agree with one of the great joys being Nats baseball right now. I'm not sure they're totally in agreement with that.
I was trying to be polite, you know?
So, here's the thing, like you make the trades. I still wouldn't call the Padres the team to beat in the National League. Like, I still think as long as that Dodgers barrier is right there, still think, the Braves won the World Series and are going to be back in the playoffs. Say what you want, but like, they are still going to have Ronald Acuna. They're still going to have Austin Riley, who is on a massive tear. Still going to have Matt Olson. They're still going to have Dansby Swanson. They're still going to have Charlie Morton. They're still going to have Ian Anderson. Still going to have, I'm trying to think, Max Fried. Like, it's still a lot of guys. Unlike the Nationals, much of the championship team is intact and going to be intact for a long time. The Mets obviously have shown, their supremacy in the National League East this year. Great job staying in front of against the Yankees and done a good job against the Braves recently, turned that challenge away. The Dodgers still lord over that division. I mean, look, on paper, you might be the favorites, but how often do we know that on paper is not how, the track to a World Series normally goes? It is usually the teams just play best that just has a good enough record to get in and is playing the best baseball. So,
yeah, man,
not
it's
a
interesting
guarantee.
you say on paper, because you know who on paper has had a good team for so long? The Dodgers. And it took them a truncated season to finally win a title. Congratulations. And your Nationals. They were for years, ESPN magazine, all these things. They got Ian Desmond and Ryan Zimmerman and Jordan Zimmerman and Scherzer, who was great, obviously, and Harper. And it took them with their lowest amount. So don't get me wrong, you have a great point, but I think here's how I'll sell it. Going back to the Josh Hader trade, right? the Milwaukee Brewers are out here, and everybody go look up the interview that Devin Williams did where he just looked completely distraught and frustrated. I think Padres fans, because unlike the Nationals, who in fairness, they did win a World Series not too long ago. So I imagine, let's rewind back in 2018 or whatever. If you told them we're going to lose everything, but we'll win a title, I think there's a good amount of people who are like, let's do it.
Okay, can I count this? But here's the thing. Nats fans,
I
didn't actually get to enjoy the title as much as I made this point a bunch. I went to some Braves games this year, and every single game was a celebration of the title, right? In some way, shape, or form, every single home game, they are celebrating the championship. The Nats got robbed of that. 2020, truncated, shortened season, no fans. And 21, whatever was left of that team, not even full capacity, team was bad. And so really you didn't get to see much of that team. And by that time you get to see them, they weren't the reigning world champions anymore. The team gets to go away. So really kind of the enjoyment, the savoring, you won one, yes, but the kind of the spoils that come with it, you know, the defense of it, like it really just, it wasn't there for the Nats fans. So it's a title, yes, but not one you get to enjoy fully with all the spoils. So I do think that combined with how fast it really went away from them does make this, you know, still hard to swallow a bit more. Fair?
Yeah, I understand that. That's fair. That's fair. But hey, still, banners fly forever. I get what you're saying. And in fairness, I was saying 2019 for a reason because, you know, we didn't know that the world would end, in fairness. But
yes,
I think that if you're a Padres fan, this has been a team that hasn't won basically ever. The last time they were good was 05. The last time they were really good was 84, 96, 98, around those years. So they're desperate. They're like, let's do it. And with back to the Josh Hader point, you would much rather be the team like the Padres that said, screw it, we are going all in since we haven't won in a while, versus the other team that's like, we haven't won in a while. I think the last time we were in a World Series was like 86, but we're still not going to go in. Instead, let's trade our top closer and one of the best relief pitchers in baseball, and also maybe put Colton Wong, our starting second baseman, on the market too, even though we are leading the division, right? So you don't want to be that. And our salary isn't that high. They're like 20th in the league. I've been making fun of the Brewers all year. I hate the Brewers.
Yeah, like they know. I'll give them credit for knowing that they can't win. They know they can't win. Like
it's that, but it's also like the fact that they just refuse to try. You know what I mean? They're like, all right, we're just not doing anything.
Yes, it is a situation of their own making. Correct.
Don't get me wrong, this is a huge thing, but I think that that's what's so fun about this is it depends on the fan base, right? Like for Padres fans, they're like, heck yeah, let's do this. If everything's flipped around, we're in bizarro world and this is a Red Sox situation, they might be like, whoa, no. We're about dominance and sustained dominance because we've won recently. So that might be a perspective on this. And the other thing for Nationals fans, speaking of competitiveness and whatnot, you were saying, you know, look, he declined that contract a few weeks ago, the contract extension with 15 years, 440 million, whatever it was. And you knew, all right, the writing's on the wall. He's probably gone. We have the all-star festivities. We have that weird him not flying a private jet storyline.
That was the dumbest story ever.
It was the dumbest thing ever. To be honest, I kind of enjoyed it from just a bystander. I thought it was hilarious that we were making
millionaires fighting over whose jet we fly on is just
for all my fellow comrades, go look up the account Celebrity Airplanes. But so you can go do that. So if I'm a Nationals fan, you also look at, you know, there was years when people were saying, I remember in like 2014, 2015, should the Angels trade Mike Trout? And he was young, he was great, and all this. And look at where the Angels are now.
Turns out the answer might have been Nationals
fan. Yeah, turns out the answer might have been yes. Turns out the answer might have been yes. So if you're the Nationals, at least look at that and say, yes, he's awesome. But it really was a bad team. The Corbin contract, the Strasburg contract hamstrings them in a lot of areas. Yeah. They don't have Trey Turner anymore. They didn't really have a lot of farm system depth. Victor Robles didn't turn into maybe a star that people would have might have thought he could become, right? All these things combined, they're in more of a position where they were like, it actually really might make sense for them to get rid of him. We're going to try the contract. If he says no, then I don't think this is the worst thing in the world for Nationals fans. And for Padres fans, I mean, they basically just were like, let's simply recreate the upcoming World Baseball Classic Dominican Republic team. That seems to be the San Diego Padres strategy.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because this team is now going to have Juan Soto and Josh Bell and Brandon Drury as like a decent DH potential guy. And granted, those guys only for half the season or the final stretch. But you have all those guys on top of Manny Machado and Jurickson Profar, who's had a very quietly solid season, even though he scared me when he got hurt a month or so ago. But he's been good. You got Ha-Seong Kim playing good defense. Eric Hosmer, you don't have to watch him anymore. You just don't have to watch that guy play first anymore.
Can we hit on
the biggest addition
in a second here? Yeah, we
yeah.
gotta
Are you upset because I'm just so happy and you're just miserable?
Well, no, the Hosmer thing it was one of the more ridiculous things when it happened.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. Yeah.
You want to finish your point first? I'm going to cut you off.
And the last thing I was going to say is there was a universe in which Padres fans, they were joking about this on Twitter and whatnot, that AJ Preller was going to be like, look, our biggest addition was getting Fernando Tatis Jr. back. You know what I mean? There was a universe where that's what he was going to say. And in fairness, he wouldn't be totally wrong about that. But instead, he went out and did crazy things because I just want him to grind my bones into dust. Just take my head like the Predator. You know what I mean? When they rip your skull out and all that, just do that. I want him to, like, Final Destination style murder me. That's how legendary AJ Preller is.
All right, so let's talk about Eric Hosmer, I guess. Speaking of Final Destination, this might not be his. He's going to the Red Sox. So this was confusing to me.
Yeah.
The Nationals, it seemed like, had agreed to take Eric Hosmer back in return. Now, this made no sense because to me at the time I was thinking, well, are they was this the only way they could maximize their package? Because at that point, they're giving you Juan Soto, they're giving you, they're taking away Eric Hosmer for the next 3 years as well, $40 million to get him off the books. And then they're going to give you the rental replacement who is better than Eric Hosmer and Josh Bell. That should have been worth some extra. Then it turns out that the Josh Bell part of the deal didn't really matter at all. Or excuse me, the Eric Hosmer part didn't really matter at all, right? Once he said no to the Nats, they're like, well, we'll just do it without him. And it's like, why are we agreeing to take on Eric Hosmer if it just doesn't matter? Like, am I a lunatic? Why would you help them clear more salary space to help them maybe stay out of tax? Like you should be punishing other teams for for this kind of stuff. You should take an extra prospect on the way out. You should be taking an extra player. Like I did not understand that. It turns out it doesn't matter. You get Luke Voigt in the end. And so it's like, what is the exercise here?
Yeah.
It didn't make much sense to me.
It's funny. And just let me pour one out for my guy, Luke Voigt. I'm not actually going to pour anything, but let me pour one out. He was a fun Padre. I really you're going to like him for his home runs and his little splashing the water and pretending to chug it. He's really fun. Josh Bell and Brandon Drury, obviously from a baseball sense, is an upgrade, but it's sad because I really enjoyed Luke Voigt and didn't really have much issues with him. Maybe he's a potential guy that the Nationals will flip down the line or whatever, much like how they tried to do that with Nelson Cruz, who hasn't necessarily worked out because he's fallen off, but you get my point. So with that whole thing, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, you gotta no, there's no way this is going to happen where Eric Hosmer, the enemy, the Judas, dare I say, of the San Diego Padres fan base, is going to come out here and be like, no, I'm not doing it. And then the whole thing falls apart.
That was a garbage place to put him in that situation.
Oh, like, don't get me wrong.
So he's supposed to pick the Nationals on an awful team as opposed to collect his check playing for the Padres in San Diego. Like, put everybody out there who's like, man, if Eric Hosmer torpedoes this, put yourself in his shoes. 32. You want to go spend 3 years with the Nats and win like a total of 120 games in 3 seasons? Or do you want to compete for champion? And look, it's not like he's had a horrible year. Like his numbers aren't outright god awful. You cannot act like they're god awful. Hold on. We can't be saying Jurickson Profar is having a nice season and act like Eric Hosmer is just awful. That's not fair. Look, his power numbers are down. He doesn't. That's not great. But all right, there you go. You get the point.
That's all I'll say.
But in terms of a life choice, that's not. It was not really a fair situation.
No, and some people were tweeting this where they were like, this is the most loser move in athlete history if he declines this or whatever. I mean, it's like, first of all,
loser move. What?
First of all,
loser move is picking DC over San Diego. That's a loser move.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
My thing is, when I saw that he was going to prove, I was like, oh yeah, that's why they had to send over more prospects, because they also wanted them to take on Hosmer. Once he figured out that didn't really matter and said they get Voigt, I think the bottom line is this. he's still getting paid. So it's not like you're going to
Aren't they
feel
just gonna
awful for
pay
the
him
guy.
out
And he was in
now?
San Diego for a while. Hey, he had fun for a
Aren't
while.
they just going to pay him out now? Is that what they're
And
doing?
now they're just going to pay him out now, which is at least a large portion of it. I have more reason to hate the Red Sox, I guess, right? With him going there. I think that there needs to be an understanding. And I've always been careful to mention that, yes, there's so many reasons why Eric Hosmer's tenure with the Padres was frustrating. Aside from just his play, it's people seemingly water carrying for him in the media, where they're always pointing out every time he does something good, even though every fan is like, what the heck, man, he's not good. And all these different things. And sometimes his attitude where he smiles a lot and whatnot. I don't personally have an issue with that.
He smiles
Fans do.
a lot and whatnot.
After making a mistake, he'll just like laugh it off and whatnot. I personally don't have a problem with that. I know other fans do, because me personally, I think people cope and have different ways of processing things. So I don't want to assume that he's not pissed off like in his head, and just because he's not Chris Sailing it and destroying the locker room, right? That he's not upset.
Yeah,
he
fair.
probably is, right? So I think that that's unfair, but it's all of those things combining. But I've always been key to mention, guys, the no trade thing. I'm glad everybody's realizing again that contract was awful from the beginning, and the Padres did not have to give him that. So it is more than his right, and more, it's his prerogative to absolutely be like, no, I negotiated this, so I'm going to decline this. And by the way, in the end, it still worked out. He gets to go to Boston, which is a team that I don't really know what they're doing, but they're at least competitive. He gets to go to Boston Red Sox. Maybe they'll be better next year and what have you than the Washington Nationals. I would do the same thing, right? Especially if, as long as he's still getting his money and whatnot, Hosmer's going to be fine. But I will say everybody has to chill out with that. But it was really funny, all the memes. There was one like little consent meme thing that was going around where it was like, actually, I have to consent to this trade. It was
I
really
saw that. Believe me,
you
I saw that. Yes.
That one absolutely killed me.
Yeah, it was.
I put out there the Joe Biden tweet where I've like replaced all the things where we've launched an airstrike on San Diego Padres first baseman. Justice is served. Like, and again, I'm joking around. Nobody should be mean to this guy. I think we saw with all the Joey Gallo reports. Go read that report.
Yeah, that was awful.
In NJ.com. Look, and here's my thing. I'm trying to be creative in my insults by not saying his name and all that, but I never would ever say anything to the guy. And I'm not saying that isn't like I'm too afraid to say it to his face. No, I mean, like, I'm kind of mostly messing around. Like, I don't want to show hate to these guys. They get plenty of it. It sucks, right? So everybody should not be totally mean. It's okay if you fire off some funny tweets and some dumb shit like I did and whatnot. Like I said, in his last act of hatred towards the Padres, Eric Hosmer killed Luke Voigt, right? So like, it's just all these things, but that people do need to calm down. I agree 100%. And bottom line is everybody kind of got what they wanted. Right. Feel bad for Voigt. I always feel bad for all these players that get moved around. I don't think we talk about it enough still, but man, it's going to be nuts, man. It is the craziest trade. I mean, my heart was falling into pieces. I mean, you saw me in the lockdown chat. Like you saw me, you saw my tweets. I was literally not able to contain myself. It's the wildest thing.
All right. So I believe the odds now, it's plus 1,200, I think, is what the Padres are at. That's from our friends at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. They are one of the sponsors of today's show. Go to BetOnline today. When you guys do, check out their new sleek interface. Sign up is free to do. They've got odds for Major League Baseball, obviously. They've got odds for NASCAR, F1, boxing, MMA, all that kind of stuff. You guys like that, you guys can find that at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. You guys can bet on who you think will win the World Series, bet on individual games, props, all that stuff. It's available at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, Javi, where can people find you and your work and all of its variety?
They can find me on Twitter at Javipeno, which is spelled JAVIIPENO, at LO_Padres for the Twitter account where I live tweet games and all sorts of stuff. There's a game going on right now, but a little trade happened today, so I hadn't been tweeting about it as much, but really crazy stuff. Probably going to be breaking down Brandon Drury, who, nice acquisition considering he lost Voigt, and will it translate the same? Was he a little bit of a product of, that great American ballpark in Cincinnati? I don't know, but so much to talk about. The Padres are certainly the team. Go check that out and follow me for weird jokes, I guess.
You guys can find me on Twitter at JoshNeighbors_. You guys can find the show at LO_Nationals, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube as well. Javi, it was a pleasure, man.
As always, Josh, An honor privilege. And I noticed you didn't wear the glasses this time, just in case you knocked them off and they went flying on camera.
That was,
Absolutely,
I actually
man.
did take them off before the show, so it's a better move. All right,
There
folks.
you go.
More reactions, I'm sure, coming up on both of these feeds.